The Parent Network is sponsored by none other than Ashley Aids. No, I just wanted to say that because I hear that on a lot of podcasts. No, but y'all, seriously, I want to share with you before we get started in our episode what exactly the Parent Network has to offer aside from podcasting. The podcast is just one outlet, one creative way for me to share my story, to share other guests and their knowledge and their expertise with you all. But also, we have a thriving and growing community called the Parent Network Hub. It is a membership. So it is a monthly membership. We meet virtually on Mondays, 3 Mondays out of the month, where there is live teaching relevant to parenting, relevant to emotional well being, relevant to life. If you are a parent, co parent, married, or single, does not matter. I would love to serve you and partner with you in our membership community. It is amazing. We have grown so much in our interpersonal relationships, and I'm loving how I'm seeing the transformation and the growth in the mentees that I have. So, if you know you need to grow in your emotional well being and you want to do so in community, go ahead and click that link in the description to fill out the membership form. Also, we don't just meet virtually, but once a year, we come together in our summit where we get away. It is the Mama Summit. Now, because the membership is open to all parents, of course, a pivot is going to have to happen. So I'm looking forward to being able to service the dads. This year is going to be different because of the pivot, where I am opening up that day session that I do with them on Saturday. So be on the lookout for that information because it's not going to be in California, y'all. We are on the move. The Parent Network is on the move, and y'all are going to hear this name ring out, and you'll be like, yep, I know that. I'm a part of that. I listen to that. Y'all see where I'm going with this? Also, the Parent Network offers coaching. So if you desire one-on-one coaching and it's not just relegated to parenting strategies, as a person, I am multifaceted, multi-gifted, but I always focus on emotional well-being. And so I have what's called root work, which can be done in a group setting or one-on-one. Go ahead and click the link in the description if you know you need to uproot some things, if you're stuck emotionally in a past season, if you are stuck and you don't even know how to process your emotions, you want to feel your emotions, you probably need to get into some sessions with me. I have trusted history. All right. All right. That's just the plug. If you need it, grab it. And then last but not least, you all know about the podcast because you're here, you're listening to it. This is just one way to reach you all. Also, I'm going to start plugging the book, y'all. Okay. Listen, I wrote a book in 2020. It's amazing, called Grace to Pivot. And it is about my life, but it's about my life up until a certain point. And so that second volume of Grace to Pivot is scheduled to be released in September. Whew, pray that I get that thing done ASAP. But no, I am super excited to pick that part back up because there's so much more to offer you all. And so, as one that is just allowing myself to step into the fullness of what God has called me to do and not limiting myself and thinking that I have to stay in a specific niche, although I know I'm called to parents, I'm also called to educate parents and individuals. So, listen, go ahead and grab my book, Grace to Pivot. If you have a story to tell, it will definitely inspire you to pick up the pen or the computer or however you need to get your story out and begin to process that. You can find it on Amazon, or if you go to the link in the description on my website and purchase from the website, you will receive a signed personal copy of the book. And I just have to add this too, that the picture is fire. Shout out to the Fiverr designer that got the gloss, the matte, and all of that. And shout out to the photographer who did it, Neat Yes, Neat Photographies, because I want to get it right, because she's a twin, y'all. That's why. But those are the announcements that I want to make sure that you all have access to every single time the podcast drops, because there are things that are happening within the parent network. Just remember, it's going to be a household name, and I'm excited to see the seeds that have been planted flourish. And also, shout out to y'all for listening to the podcast, for streaming it, for downloading it, and for sharing it. I am super grateful that you all are on this journey with me. I'll see y'all in the recording. Woo! Y'all. So, listen, we are here with season 4, and I am excited, okay? I'm excited to bring you all the tea, okay? All the things that need to be talked about, all the things that I have to share. So listen, we're here. Y'all already heard what the podcast is about, what Parent Network is about. So let's just go ahead and get into today's episode. So, as I share with you all, we are going to dig into my no contact. Okay, we're going to piggyback on that, because when I looked at the analytics of the podcast, that was the highest podcast that was listened to. So that lets me know that you all are very interested in how to do no contact with family members, because again, when we think about no contact, sometimes it just happens because it just happens. Then there are other times where no contact, it is inevitable, like it has to be done. And so in my case, that's what happened. I'm not going to recap that. If you want to listen to it, you can go back to season 1 or 2 or whichever one of those seasons it was and listen to that episode. But I'm going to pick up where we left off. So uh, from October to January, I absolutely had zero contact with my mom. I had blocked her, and this was for my own peace of mind and all of the things. In the meantime, I did pray. Now, this was the first time that I had that went no contact. I've never not had any type of contact with her, because again, those individuals that usually struggle with a mother wound, there are aspects of you that are going to be a people pleaser. And because that was in me, it was like, okay, well, wait, I feel like I need to at least have some type of contact with her, even if it was toxic. And having to go through therapy, deliverance, in the word, just understanding what love is truly. I realized that I did not have to settle for breadcrumbs, or I didn't have to settle for the idea of what was. And while I understood that it was what she had and what she could give me, I didn't have to just take that into consideration, if y'all get what I'm saying. So from October to January, I didn't have any contact. Now, January came, it was a new year. She had changed her number, y'all. She had changed her number because, I guess her messages wasn't going through, her phone calls weren't going through. And so it was one day, I seen the number on my phone. My phone was ringing. And generally, if your number is not saved in my phone, I'm not going to answer it. But because I have kids, I do typically answer the phone. And so I didn't answer. And I said in my mind, I'm going to call this number back, because again, it could have been anything. I said, but if it was important, they'll leave a message, right? So she ended up texting me and was saying, Happy New Year. I got a new number, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, aha, this was her number that call. I had kind of like a feeling though that it was her who was trying to call. when I finally checked my voicemails, because I didn't know that when you block someone, they can still leave you a voicemail. I thought it was just nothing. Like you can't get in contact, period. So when I checked my voicemail, she had left me, I think, about 6 voicemails. And I was like, wow, my goodness. I deleted them. I didn't even listen to all of them because her tone can be just really just like manipulative and just all of the things. So I didn't listen to them. I deleted them. So I just sent her a text message back and I said, Happy New Year. That was it. Y'all, big pause right there. Maybe a couple of days later into the new year, I hear a knock at my door. It was her. It was her. And so I wasn't upset. Um, Although I had told her before, do not come and show up to my house. I wasn't upset because, again, the compassion part of me was like, you haven't spoken to her, you haven't seen her. So, okay, she's good, she's alive, she's going through her own situation, and there's nothing you can do about that. Don't even try to put yourself in the space of trying to do anything about that because that's not your job, Ashley. And we're going to talk more about that when, we feel parentified, even as adults, to step into the role of parent or provider for our parents. We're going to get into that too. So, she was telling me about, what she had experienced or whatever. And I was just like, well, I'm glad you're okay. I gave her a hug. She said, can I have a hug? And I'm like, sure, I'm not evil. I'm not heartless. But the boundary is there for a reason. So, gave her a hug. And then she ended up leaving. Now, from then, it was just this constant like calling and calling and calling and texting for no reason. And I was like, okay, I can't do this. I'm not going to entertain this. And so I did answer the phone one time and I explained to her, some things. And I explained to her, why I'm choosing not to engage in conversation and things of that nature and left it at that. So here we are. It's April now. I was thinking a few weeks ago about how my projection, or let me not say my projection, but my experience with my mom has not been the best since I was a child. The experience that my children have with her were not my experience. Now, because I am responsible for their life, their well-being, I take that very serious. So when I did no contact, they went no contact as well. And even before that, I believe I shared with you all on the previous episode about no contact how there were certain things that she would do that just were not okay with me, and I'm not going to subject my kids to an environment or to a way of parenting just for the sake of a break. Like, no thank you. As the young kid said, no ma'am, no ham, no turkey. So in that, they understood. We had conversation. It wasn't like, I cut them off from her and then that was it. Like, we talked about these things. So recently, my 16-year-old, he decided that he wanted to go somewhere so bad and I couldn't take him. His dad wasn't able to take him. He wasn't able to get away there, that he was going to ask Granny, that's what they call her, to take him. And I was so upset, y'all. I was so upset, mainly because I don't like the manipulative factor in that, because you haven't talked to her, you haven't seen her, and it's just like, okay, well, I know she'll take me. Let me just do that. Now, that's the perspective that I was seeing it as. He was just like, Mom, like, it's okay. Like, she's not gonna come in the house. She's not gonna do any of those things. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's not the point. That is not the point. Like, I've talked about this whole manipulative tactic. We cannot do that. So, needless to say, that plan got busted up for other reasons, not because he asked her, but for legitimate reasons that he was trying to pull a fast one. And I know y'all parents understand when your kids try to pull a fast one, you have to go into Shelby Woo mode and detective and figure out what's really going on. And once I figured out what was really going on, it was HE double hockey sticks, exclamation mark. No, you're not going to be able to do that, sir. So in my reflection though, I was like, okay, Lord, I don't want my experience, my feelings, to taint their perspective. Now, although we've had conversation, although we, talked about these things, my youngest son is very compassionate and he's very empathetic. And so he's like, well, I'll call her and I'll talk to her just to see how she's doing X, Y, and Z. Now, I wasn't going to be like, no, you're not. You're not about to call her. You're not about to do anything because, again, it's not like she's put them in harm's way. However, and this is a big however, emotional instability is as detrimental as physical instability. Okay. There is no one that's bigger than the other. Both of them have ramifications. And in my opinion, emotional instability, emotional manipulation is a whole nother beast. Okay. You can heal physically. Yes, it will be lodged in your psyche and you will remember that experience. But when you're carrying emotional wounds, baby, that thing, whoo, that's like a ton of bricks on top of a physical wound. Again, in my opinion. So I didn't want to subject them to that. And so that was a big reason why I was like, okay, y'all need to take a break. Y'all need to detox from her. I need to figure out exactly what no contact is going to look like in the long run, how that's going to be. Because she didn't understand, and she still doesn't understand really like the whole boundary things. Although she has not shown up to my house since the last time she did that, because she understood that, okay, wait, she's not playing. And that is a big issue that I needed her to understand. Like, you can't just show up when you feel like it. It doesn't work that way. I don't care if we are on good terms. You can't just show up to someone's house and expect them to open up the door for you. And you play it off like it's nothing. We're not doing that. So couple of weeks ago, I was sitting there kind of just reflecting over everything that has just been transpiring in my life within family. And I said, okay, I want to figure out a healthy way to try and integrate her into our lives, but still maintain that boundary that is there. It's not a wall, it's not a fence, it is literally a boundary. And so as I was thinking and reflecting on that, she asked me if she could take Caleb to the park to watch the baseball games, excuse me, and then kind of just like, hang out at the park for a little bit. Now, he's an active kid, okay? Caleb has a lot of energy. So I said, you know what? That should be okay. I asked him though, do you want to do this? Because if you don't want to, you don't have to. And he said, I'll go with her to the park. Now, the oldest one, he not so much. Y'all know, teenagers, unless it's benefiting them, they're not really too prone to want to hang out at the park anymore because they're not trying to do that. So he said no, and he had other plans anyway. So the youngest one, he goes to the park with her. And she calls me, as she does every single time she has my kids. She will call 11 times to say, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. And I'm like, okay, or she'll call to complain that they're acting up and she can't deal with it. Like it's just, you never knew what side of the coin you were going to get. That was another reason why I had eased them away from being with her often, because of that. Like, either you're going to be with them and enjoy them or you're not. And I remember one time my oldest son, he was like, if we wanted to play the game all day, we could play the game at home. We could have just stayed at home. And I said, well, you have to say that. Hey, like, can we go somewhere? Can we do something? Because in her mind, taking y'all to the store, going to run errands is a whole big deal for her. And that exhausts her in and of itself. So let's get back to them going to the park. So my mom, my youngest son, they go to the park. He was fine. And then he calls me. No, first he texts me and he was like, I'm never going with her again. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. She's tripping out again. All of this and all of that. And then he's calling me and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, are you at home? I'm ready for her to drop me off at home. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, oh, geez. So I said, well, I'll be home in about 10 minutes. So I get home, waiting for him to get home. He gets home and he was like, oh, Mom, I got something to tell you. He was like, I tried. I tried to be kind with Granny. I tried to go with her, but I can't do it anymore. So I'm like, tell me what happened. So he begins to share with me his day and how they were at the park. And he's like, I see my friends from school and, all of that. He's like, and then all of a sudden, she just starts talking about how, you know, boys shouldn't be kissing girls and boys should not put their penis in girls' behinds. And she just basically, y'all, went on a tangent. I don't want to go into more detail because y'all can see where I'm going with this. And in my mind, I'm like, wow, 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 wow. Like, I try to extend an olive branch, but it's very evident that you cannot and are not capable of withholding what's happening inside of your mind in a moment and then giving it out to a 10-year-old. And y'all want to know why? Because she doesn't have anyone to talk to. So her opportunity was to talk to her 10-year-old grandson. And I try to, and this is the thing, y'all. This is the thing that will try to trip you up sometimes. If you let it, it'll trip you up. But I caught myself because I'm like, okay, well, maybe she was trying to talk to him about, sex education. And then it's like, well, why would she be talking to him about sex education? You've already had that conversation with him. You've explained to her that you've had the conversation with him. And then the way in which she's going about it is inappropriate. So I'm like, some things just cannot be rationed. He obviously felt a type of way behind it, and I respected his feelings. And I said, you don't have to go back with her. We tried. You tried to be empathetic. You tried to extend your olive branch, and it didn't work. So as he's kind of just reflecting on all of that, he was like, I just don't understand, like, how she just went from one thing to the next. I said, some things, honey, we will never understand, but we will continue to pray for her and we will continue to keep the boundary. Keep the boundary, y'all. So, in a nutshell, that's how the no contact is going. I try to figure out what it would look like to integrate her into small parts of our lives. Because she's not privy to details of our lives. She's not privy to happenings of our lives because she doesn't get that privilege because she has shown to be unsafe in that regard. So now here we are with this, where she's shown again that she's incapable of just enjoying the moment of having your grandkid, being at the park, and then bringing him back home without having an episode. And that's really what I call it. I call it an episode because out of nowhere, you just start talking about that like that. But again, as I've said before, I do believe that there are some mental health issues with her, but she doesn't. And as the older people used to say, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. We cannot get our parents to see our perspective. We cannot get our parents to understand our perspective if they are of a closed mindset. That is exactly the mindset that my mom has. She's not looking to grow. She's not looking to change. She's not even looking to adapt to the ways of what's happening in the world. She is, and seems like will always be in this space of this happened to me. And if this happened to me, I am trying to make sure that it doesn't happen to anyone else. But instead of saying, this happened to me, I was violated, or I was exposed to things, or whatever it was, she does that type of dance where she tries to pry for information and it just always backfires. And when I started to realize that, I was like, yeah, this is unhealthy and it's totally, totally unsafe. So where I am now with it is I'm nowhere with it. To be honest, y'all, I am nowhere with it. I tried. That's where I am. I think I tried and I see that there's no progress on her end. And so I will not subject myself nor my children to the emotional instability that she provides. So if she desires to be unstable in her world, then I'm going to let her be unstable in her world until she says, hey, you know what? I do want some help. I do think something is going on with me. I will be more than happy to step in and assist her to put her on the right track towards healing and wholeness. But for now, y'all, she's not there. And I'm not going to exhaust myself, stress myself, or take on a burden that does not belong to me. I remember when she got into the situation that she's in now, I said, God, like, what am I supposed to do? And he said, nothing. You can pray for her. I said, okay, I can absolutely do that. And if there's something that I want to do, then I will do it. Like she had a birthday last month. And I know she likes Bath and Body Works. So I just emailed her a gift card because it was something that I wanted to do, not necessarily something that I needed to do. I don't have to do anything. And because I've come out of that arena of people pleasing and I've come out of that whole ideation of this is my mom and, I have to, show her that I'm a good daughter. Like, no, we're no longer living in this manipulative, toxic cycle any longer. And so for anyone that is listening, that just kind of finds themselves in that space where it's just like, I want to be there for my parent, but I also want to be there for myself. You always have to realize that your kids are watching what you do. The decisions that you make, they are very privy to that, even if they are not saying anything. And how you show up for yourself is going to be a reflection of how you show up for them. And so if you're choosing not to show up for you because you're trying to show up for your parent, because that's all you've known, I understand. But you have to get to a place where you break that cycle and you introduce something new. And self-care, self-awareness, boundaries, these terms that I use now was nothing that I grew up with. I didn't see self-care. I didn't see a boundary. All I seen was pride, like I told y'all before, manipulation, emotional unavailability, all across the bloodline. Now that I have chosen to heal, to take responsibility and accountability, it's a game changer. And my children see it, reap the benefits of it, and I'm teaching it to them. So I just want to encourage you, like if you are on the border of going no contact, and it is going to be a hard decision, yes. It is going to be something that you may feel like, how can I do? But if it's something that you know you need to do for your sanity, do it. And again, no contact doesn't mean forever. I told y'all I went no contact from October to January. And then I responded to a text message. And then again, I allowed an olive branch to be extended 6 months later. And it that was it. No more branches. The tree is cut because you're not ready and you're not stable enough. And I would not be, number one, someone that's practicing what they're preaching if I continue to give my children away in a space that is not conducive to their growth or their development or their well-being. So parents, listen, I know it's difficult. I know that they're your parent. I know that you may feel a sense of obligation, but hear what I'm saying. You are not obligated to be responsible for the livelihood of your parent. If it's taxing, if it makes you anxious, if it takes away from your peace, nothing is worth that. Nothing. And I had to come to the realization when I first went no contact. Ashley, nothing is worth your peace. You cannot ask God to give you peace and then you place yourself in an environment of dis-ease. It just doesn't make sense. And that can go with no contact for anybody. It doesn't just have to be your parent. Wherever there is dis-ease, unrest, anxiousness, your peace should not be there. Jesus said it like that to his disciples. If you go to a place and they don't receive you, shake the dust off of your feet. Go with your peace. I'm going to tell y'all, go with your peace. Okay? Go with your peace and do what you want to do. Do what you can do. Do not feel obligated to do more than that. Release the idea that you are a savior. You're not. That savior complex will keep us in a chokehold if we let it. Do not let it. You are not, you're not your kid's savior. You're not your parent's savior. You're not your husband's savior. You're not your co-parent's savior. You're not even your own savior. But you have a responsibility to show up in the best version of yourself, especially when you're seeking peace and wholeness. Anything that disrupts your peace does not need your time or attention. And I want you to remember that, y'all. I want you to remember that because it's going to be so beneficial for you. And it's actually going to be beneficial for them. They may not see it and you may not see it. But looking at something from a long view perspective versus just the right now makes all of the difference in the world. Don't just live for right now only. Don't just make decisions for right now only. Make decisions that are going to be beneficial for every stage of your life. And when it comes to going no contact, sometimes you have to revisit the decision that you made. There's so many things that go into that. And so I'm not here to tell you, you need to do it, you better do it, you should do it. I'm telling you my experience. And if you believe that that would be beneficial for you to regain peace, to collect yourself, to really think in an uncluttered way, then do it. So I'm pretty sure I'll be back, with an update of some sort at some point along this journey in our podcast. And I hope that that update is more positive and uplifting and, has a better outcome. But for now, my focus and my responsibility is me and my children and doing what God has called me to do. And I will not be distracted by anybody or anything. So I hope this episode today, y'all, just kind of encouraged you, enlightened you, maybe gave you some aha moments. Because listen, lives. People are going to people. But let me tell y'all something. God is always going to be God. And if we let him show us the way and we take that plan and take that path, it's going to work out for us. It's going to work out for us. So be encouraged, y'all. Okay? Be encouraged. But we're going to have some more juice, some more tea, some more water on season four's podcast. I'll catch y'all on the next one.